I'll hit record. And that's us recording. So welcome guys, we're joined by Bobby McDougal, the manager and singer of Nocturnewulf. Please tell me I didn't butcher how you say that.
Absolutely, it's Bobby McDougal from Nocturnewulf.
So for the people listening at home, it might not know about you or know about your band. How don't you tell us a wee bit about yourself and the kind of job that you're doing now?
Sure. So as you said, I'm kind of dual purpose roles at the moment. So I sing for Nocturnewulf, but I also I'm an agent for reaction management. So Nocturnewulf, we got in touch with Reaction a couple of years, and we joined the roster with Jay Burnett, who runs Reaction, and without going into too much detail, just because it takes too long, but about just over a year ago, I had a lot going on in family life and stuff, and I couldn't really commit to the gigs, the music gigs. So I said to the boys, look, I'm going to stand aside, and then Jay said to me, right, do you want to jump on board with the management? Because when I was in the band the first time, I was always kind of the organizer for everything anyway. So it was a case of I took on Nocturnewulf with their new singer, and then I got another couple of bands. I got a band called The Ritual Spirit, and then Divinators. So I've got 3 bands on my own little mini roster, and then just a couple of months ago, the singer that took over for me, he decided it wasn't for him. So, and it was kind of a natural thing. It was just like, do you want to come back? Aye, and that was it. So that's me back in the band now. So. And it's been brilliant, to be fair. It was good for both parties, because it was good for me because I was missing the music side of it, and then because I knew all the lyrics, which was helpful, and all the music, it was just basically walk straight back in and crack on with it again, so it was good for them.
Yeah, so I was given some of your stuff that I be listening to over the week, and it's a heavy metal band.
Yes.
Right. No, because I listened to some of your stuff, and although heavy metal's no my scene, it's more the scene of one of the other guys that run the podcast. I listened to stuff and I had respect for what you were doing, and I thought it flowed quite well.
No, thanks very much. No, it's weird because it's kind of it's like an old school heavy metal, because most of us in the band are, like, especially myself, we're massive Metallica fans, and especially vocally. There has to be a melody in there. There has to be there has to be some attempt to try and sing. You can have you need a little bit of an aggression in your voice, but you need, for us, the important thing about the song is the vocal melody and the lyrics explaining the meaning behind the song. And heavy metal, that kind of gets lost a wee bit because of the loudness and the distorted guitars, and everything's just turned up to 11, isn't it? Like Spinal Tap. So so we try and concentrate on that, to be fair. So we're quite unique because we do sound old school, and there's not many of that going around in the local scene. But to be fair, I think the only way to explain it is like Gary. There's a guy, Gary Holt, who he plays in Exodus, but he played with Slayer as well. And he did a guitar clinic in Glasgow once, and he basically he told everybody in the room, he says, I don't write music that you like, that for you to like. He says, I write music that I like. So
I get you.
If you like it, then fuck you.
That seems to be the attitude kind of heavy metal, and I think that's part of why it's been so successful, because it's quite rebellious, and it's so right as well. Yeah. It kind of goes against the whole status quo of what music's supposed to be. Like, music's an art; it can be whatever you want.
Absolutely.
I think that's where heavy metal kind of capitalised on that kind of large market, because it was unique in its own right.
Yes.
What was it it drew you towards metal?
It was a strange one because I'd never been brought up with it, and I moved about a bit when I was a kid, so I ended up down in London for the last couple of years of my school, and it was just round about the kind of the Britpop time, so I definitely maybe came out in '94 from Oasis, and so I was daft into Oasis, and so I started listening to all the Verve and the Charlatans and Oasis, the Seahorses and stuff like that. And I always remember I was always really musical. I played a few instruments when I was younger. I was really good at the violin, so I played in orchestras and stuff. And I remember walking into near the drama room in the school at lunchtime, and I heard these 4 boys in this room, and they were playing. It must have been a Metallica song, but I'd never heard this noise, this distortion that was coming out of the amplifiers. I was like, what the fuck's this? So I remember walking into the room, and the guy that's turned out to be like one of my best friends in life now, he just turned around to the door and he went, fuck off. And I was like, but I eventually I got pally with them just because I kept pestering them, and then they said, right, this is the stuff we're playing. They gave me like blank tapes that they'd recorded for me, and that was it. As soon as I heard the introduction to Enter Sandman, and that was me.
Aye, because when you were kind of describing it there, that was the song that was popping into my head. I was at Enter. If any song's going to drive you towards that, it's Enter Sandman. I think that's one of the ones everyone that appreciates music listens to and goes,
yeah,
oh, that's pretty good. That's
because I totally wasn't. I didn't know what was coming. So you got the clean guitars just playing the introduction, and then you're like sitting there going, and all of a sudden it just goes bang right in your ear, and you go, oh, right, okay, this is it.
You were saying you joined back the band a couple of months ago. How's that been during the whole COVID era?
It's been good. So when the boys were under lockdown originally, and they must have went about 3 months maybe where they couldn't do anything together in a studio. So we were quite lucky. Our album was pretty much recorded in-house. So one of the boys has got the Pro Tools set up, and so the guitars and the bass were recorded basically in one of the boys' bedrooms. So they kind of utilised that. When I joined the band, there was literally 10 tracks were written and played, recorded roughly with like programmed drums, and then we've got a Google Drive that we load everything up to. So it was just a case of they used that time really well, off a 10 songs, and then when I came in, it was just a case of I could listen to the music every single day because it was on the drive, work out the melody, start writing the lyrics. So we've got, I think, 5 of those 10, we've got them fully complete, rehearsed in the back in the space of a couple of months. So the boys had done all the spade work, to be fair. I mean, and then I was still involved with that from a management side. So you were kind of trying to make sure that they were still feeling upbeat, still motivated. So you were giving them kind of like, right, so what's the plan? Well, you can't do anything else, but you can basically write music. So I think it's the same for every single band out there. Like if every band doesn't have a new album by the summer of next year, then I don't really know what they've been doing, because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's it, especially with people that have maybe got 2 jobs as well, and if they're maybe furloughed for the first job, it allows them to put their whole passion kind of into the music.
Absolutely.
Because did you release anything during lockdown? So I was just curious on how well it was received during lockdowns. It seems that everyone was listening to music.
So the boys, so the guy that took over from me, David Yates, so they actually recorded a single that wasn't on the album, Silver Hand. So they released that back in July. And the other band that I look after, Ritual Spirit, they released a single maybe 2 weeks before it or something, Broken. So both of them went down really well. They got a lot of traction, and especially online, they got so much exposure from it, because everything's online at the moment, isn't it? So and they both of them did a PR drive with Fat Angel, the PR company.
Right. Okay.
So Angel from Angel Mary, she's on Facebook. She did a great job in pushing it around the radio stations and getting them into the magazines and stuff. So yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. I mean, to be fair, Ritual Spirit joined the roster, joined Reaction at the start of lockdown. So they actually took a big leap of faith, because normally when a band joins the roster, you talk about a timeline. So you've got a 6-month timeline basically that you work on, and in the normal circumstance you would say, right, so what gigs do you want to play, or is there any specific festivals that you would like to play alongside? So what new releases have you got? Are you recording? So it's just mega busy. But obviously half of that went out the window because there's no gigs.
Yeah.
But they actually put a bit, we knew each other before, to be fair, and they I've got to thank them, because they put a lot of trust, and they did take a leap of faith joining the roster. But what they noticed was their, like, Facebook, for example, they went from 1,200 likes on Facebook to over 3,000 in the space of 3-4 months. So from that point of view, it did them a massive favour. It's a long game being in a management roster. You could maybe join for 6 months and not really see any fruit from it, but all of a sudden it kicks in when you're least expecting it, and then it takes off from there. So you've got bands that have, like Altered Sky, that have played at Download. Ritual Spirit played at Bloodstock. Who else? Nishima. So they played at Download as well. The Renains were on the roster. They've just left, but they're taking over the country now. So there's definitely success stories from being on the roster, and it's evident. But it works for both sides. The band's got to put the effort in, and the manager's got to put the effort in. But when it works together and it clicks, it's brilliant, So sorry for rattling on, but yeah, but basically the whole lockdown thing was, I always look at things half full, to be fair, and I think it was a good time for bands. I did notice that there was, guys were getting a bit down in the dumps and that, which was to be expected, but the ones that actually got the head down and got on with it, then they'll see the fruits from that now.
Because I was thinking, is one of the questions I was going to ask, and it's funny because you brought them up there with Debbie's band, the Ronians. Like they've just exploded recently, and like can't be happier for them, because they seem just such a down to earth band to produce really good music. Do you think having them being on the roster, that's their success is like trickled down to the rest of these, if that makes sense? So
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, musically, we couldn't be any further away from them, in terms of style.
Yeah.
When we joined the roster, I remember sending some of the guys in different bands messages, just saying, "Oh, how you doing?" And they were like kind of one of the first ones that got back to me, and they were always really nice, So I always remember they did an album launch at the Hard Rock. And me and the boys went up to see them, and then we played at King Tut's. We were headlining at King Tut's last year, and they came up to see us. And we've always just got on really well, to be fair. So, and I kind of look up to them in a way that's like, it doesn't happen. Like what's happening with them isn't just luck. They graft their arses off,
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely.
I just look at it and go, they've got the right ethic, they've got the right work ethic that I want. That's what I want to do. I want to be, you know, if you put in the graft that they've done, then you'll start to see, you know, good results from it. But no, you're right, lovely people, and yeah, I just really take my hat off to them. I admire them, you know.
Yeah. No, it's great to see, and it's great to see young Scottish bands like that doing so well, because now it's as if you can't turn on your telly without seeing them, because they're on the Dragon Super Trip, which seems to be on every channel at every minute. It's amazing.
I know, it's as if they like Dragon Soup or something, isn't it? I keep missing opportunities. I keep drinking pale ale.
You're advertising. If Pale Ale are out there looking for a sponsor,
It's always Beer 52. Yes.
So we've touched on COVID a wee bit now, but what do you think's been the biggest impact COVID-19 has made in the music industry?
I mean, to be fair, it's obvious really, but we kind of touched on it there. But the fact that there's no any gigs, is huge. It's just, you know, it's kind of it's the reason you're in a band. I mean, it's great writing music and recording music, but the reason that you play in a band is because you want to go on stage, even if it's in front of one person or 300 people or 1,000 people, and go play live, because otherwise what's the point, you know? That's why you do it. I mean, that's when I joined Nocturnewulf originally, you know, and the boys were saying, what do you want to do? I says, well, I want to gig every week.
Yeah.
That's what bands are supposed to do.
That's the fun. That's essentially like you train all week, and that's like your big game. That's like your game at the weekend. Because it's quite funny, because it's a very similar conversation that I was having with one of the MMA fighters. It was on a guy called Ross Cooper, and what we're saying is, like, you've got a like plethora, a kind of young talent coming up. Do you feel a lot of them are going to be disgruntled because they can't? There seems to be no future now for these gigs. Like, there's no real light at the end of the tunnel. I know we're getting closer because the vaccine's just been discovered, but who knows how long that'll be. That'll take before it's put in place. So are we kind of at risk of losing so many young, talented musicians?
I mean, there is a risk in terms of, you know, it's very difficult to look further than 5 feet away sometimes in life. And, you know, I'm 39 now, and, you know, 40 in the summer, and it's, you know, it's different for me because I can kind of, you know, I don't panic about it because I know it's going to come back probably sooner rather than later, in kind of summertime next year, you know, all going well with the vaccines. So, and it won't be back to normal, but it'll be back in some capacity. So for me, it's like, I just look at it like, I say to the boys, right, we've got till summer basically to get all this writing and recording done, because after that, it'll be back to gigs and you won't have any time to do it. So that's kind of the way we look at it. We just set our targets like that. It's like, right, all right, we can't do it. Forget about it. There's no point crying about it. Let's get on with it, and then do what we need to do in terms of new songs out there, getting songs recorded, doing, you know, just doing anything basically, just to keep yourself active. But I can see it's the kind of guys that I feel sorry for are the, you know, your sound engineers and your guys that are not necessarily in bands, but they work in the industry, and you know, I mean, what are they doing? You know, that is maybe for some of them it might have been a primary source of employment. So if you've no gigs, then, you know, what are you supposed to do? You need to go and do something else. And we all know at the moment, I mean, you know, any job that comes up at Tesco or Asda, you're 500 applicants for each one, you know, because everybody's looking for a job at the moment. So it's not a nice time, to be fair, and I kind of sound a bit flippant when I talk about these things, but like I said earlier, I try and look at it half full for everything. So And that comes with age, you know, you just kind of look back, you just take a step back at everything and you look and go, right, okay, how bad is it? Well, it's pretty bad. Okay, so how can we get out of it? What can we do to keep ourselves mentally sane for the next 6 months? Right. So you give yourself a job, give yourself a target. And guess what? If, like we said right at the start, the music industry is always pretty lackadaisical when it comes to timescales. So you might not be finished in 6 months, but the gigs might not be back in 6 months. So you're just kind of guessing and you're thinking, right, okay, we'll plan for that. If it doesn't happen, then we'll think of something else, you know. But I'm pretty confident that in some way it will be back to some sort of gigs, maybe at reduced capacities and things like that, but it will be back kind of summertime. And the good thing is, there's a good thing, I think, that between COVID and Brexit, a lot of big bands will not be coming over to Britain or Scotland specifically for a while. So there's never a better opportunity for guys like us and all the smaller kind of local bands to attract a decent crowd, because people are going to be itching to go to gigs, and
Aye.
the big gigs are not going to be there for them to go to, so they're going to have to go somewhere.
Because I think that's it. And it's very reassuring, see, as a fan of the music industry, to listen to people like yourself who have so much lived in experience of the industry, speaking so kind of confidently and kind of motivational, because that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to do this interview, because I wanted to kind of, like any kind of struggling musician out there who's, because they're being told by the government to essentially retrain. So I can see that being very off-putting, but I think I'm listening to people who are like kind of living essentially their dream. It might make them feel a wee bit better, and might not make them no disgruntled and leave the industry. So I think we really need more folk like yourself coming out and being more kind of positive about the future of the music industry. And I know
absolutely. I mean, I was talking to one of the guys in the band last night about, you know, similar subjects, and I don't know anybody. Maybe it's just myself, but I don't know anybody else in our kind of little industry that does music for a living. Maybe a couple. Maybe a couple, but not exactly, like, they're not exactly touring, if you know what I mean. But apart from that, everybody's got a job, and then we all try and do this. You know, what we really want to do, we do it at the side. So we do our job during the day so that we can buy our nice microphones and amplifiers and guitars. But unfortunately, you need to do that to pay the mortgage, and then you put all everything else goes into the music. So it was quite funny when you know, we were talking about the retraining thing. It's like, right, okay, so I'll go and retrain as a nurse. That'll probably take me about 4 years. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen. It's just bollocks, you know. So it's like, you know, I know. I met a guy years and years ago, and he was a session bass player, and I was working on a construction of a golf course down in London. And this guy came in, and all he did was pick up stones, and he was just picking up stones and walking around with a bucket for 2 weeks. And eventually we started talking, and he was talking about music, and he says, "Oh, I'm actually a musician." And I said, "Oh, right." And he said, "I'm a bass player." I went, "Oh, do you play in a band?" He said, "No, I'm a session." He says, "I just came off tour with Nena Cherry." And I was like,
oh,
Jesus, what are you doing here? And he went, "Oh, the tour finished." He says, "And I need to do something to get a couple of quid." So that's because music's a harsh industry, you know. So you've got to know that you can't just, you know, nothing's going to come to you, to be fair. So yeah, the whole retraining thing, that's just nonsense, because you're not going to retrain to do a completely different profession, because timescales don't add up. But you know, if you're relying on Spotify, you know, giving you 75 pence every 3 months, then you're not going to make any money anyway, you know. You've kind of got to be a bit pragmatic about it and say, right, okay, I'll need to do something to get a couple of quid. But most people that I know locally, and people I've met, you know, around the country, they're very committed to music. You know, it's not it's a hobby, but it's not. It's a serious side of their life, and there's so much talent about it as well. You know, it's such a shame because there's so many local bands that are really good. You know, and you could quite easily see them, you know, playing at the Hydro, supporting Metallica or Slayer or whatever. You know, there's a lot of luck involved in music, to be fair. So,
because that's it. I think a lot of the time it might just be right place at the right time, but I think you do, like, you obviously need to have that talent to kind of get discovered, but a lot of it might just be when you're playing, that sort of idea, because it might just be the right persons in the audience who can give you that kind of boost.
yes.
But kind of without getting too political, when I heard like the government say, like, asking musicians to kind of retrain, I felt that was a slap in the face to the work that they've done, because especially during lockdown, like, during lockdown, music was a massive release for so many people. So many people are listening to music just as a form of escapism, as a lot of music's used for. So to tell people kind of, oh, retrain because your art's not really fully been appreciated, it's a bit, you listen to it and it's like they're just slapping these people in the face, and it's...
Yeah. And to be fair though, it comes down to the fact that, and it's the same as any industry in the world, in life, that if you're the chancellor or you're the minister for whatever, if you don't play music, or you don't have a passion for music, everybody says they like music, which is true because the radio's on everywhere you go. But if you don't understand it, then it's an easy thing for somebody to say, because for them, they don't actually understand, you know, how you feel, you know. So they don't look at it as if to say, you know, what's the big deal? Just go and get another job. And on paper, that they're right, but it's not as easy as that, because you're like, no, this isn't just a, you know, a profession or something that I do. It's your passion, it's your love. So, but they obviously don't understand it, you know. So I mean, it's funny because we were having a debate about the Brexit carry on. I just noticed, it was one of the boys mentioned to me that, you know, Trivium are coming on tour to Europe next year. So they've announced a Europe leg of their tour, but they're not coming to the UK. So they played Glasgow last year. For some reason, they're not even touching the UK. So we were saying, oh, do you think it's got anything to do with Brexit? So when you start reading into it, the UK festival industry alone brings in more revenue than the fishery revenue.
Right.
But from a business point of view, then if you're dismissing a whole industry that brings in so much money to the UK economy, then you obviously don't have a clue about the music industry or the arts. So I was quite surprised, you know. And then you read stuff like, you know, when European bands, or, you know, anywhere from the world apart from the UK, if they were to come to a festival in the UK, it's funny when you start reading into it even more, that a lot of the bands don't like playing in the UK because the facilities and the infrastructure that's put on is really bad. It's like a lot of big bands have to bring a lot of their own kit. I don't feel sorry for them because they're making money, but that goes for everybody. So they say, like, if you played a festival in France or Germany, you just turn up, everything's laid on for you. It's because the governments in these countries actually put money into the arts, and proper money, because they know that it's going to bring in so much business revenue from tourism and from having these bands coming over. So if you look at the festivals in Germany, for example, especially in the metal festivals, I mean, they're massive, and like a lot of people from UK will go over these festivals in Europe because they're brilliant. And it's funny that you see interviews from people that organise festivals over here, and they're just telling the truth. They're saying, oh, bands don't really like coming over here because it's not even that high end that it's put on, you know. So yeah, I know you said don't get too political, but yeah, I just think that the government, not just the government, I just think politicians as a whole have a lot of power over a lot of different industries, and the arts and the music is included in that. and they don't understand it. I always think in any business, you know, if you're running a business, whoever's in charge of that section of that business should have a very, very good understanding of it. You know,
No,
it's almost as
absolutely.
if you get it.
I
Most businesses are working. The guy that's wearing the suit and tie, probably using a spanner 10 years ago,
yeah.
and he's been on the shop floor with the rest of the guys, and he's worked his way up, so he knows how that works. He knows how they work, and he knows how the system works, and that's kind of the way it should be. Maybe there should be more musically minded people that, you know, get involved in that side of the government, I would say. I'm just trying to create a job for myself, to be fair.
It's quite funny. It's quite funny you mentioned that about like over here not having like the kind of full appreciation for the art, because it's a conversation I have with my boss quite regular, and like because we work in community development, and like we always like to touch and talk about the arts, and one of the things he always says is if you ever look at like most dictatorships, he was at the first thing they ever eradicate is like music and art, because they see that's the best way to control the population, because that's a form of expression. It's a form of kind of freedom. So take that away, it eradicates that level of thinking.
Yes. Yeah. Or they just get them to play whatever they want.
Yeah, that's it. Everything becomes kind of censored, and that's part of the worry. If we are at risk of losing so many musicians,
yeah,
it's just how many different voices are just going to be shut down.
Yes, absolutely.
So you touched on the King Tuts earlier. One of my kind of concerns throughout the whole kind of coronavirus as an outsider looking in is, are we at risk of losing venues like the King Tuts that provided a platform for like so many talented artists?
In that example, I would say no. I think King Tuts is kind of bomb-proof in terms, because it is such an iconic venue. I've been lucky. I've played King Tuts 3 times now, and I always remember the first time it was like, oh wow, you know, King Tuts, because you knew the history of it. Obviously, before I was a metalhead, I was a big Oasis fan, and they were kind of, you know, that's where their manager saw them in there, and you think, oh, this venue's got a lot of history. You know, there is, you know, there's other venues in the city, and not just in Glasgow, but in, you know, in Edinburgh and Dundee, Inverness, Aberdeen, and you think, you know, it does worry you in the back of your mind, but then you're, you know, going back to what I said earlier, you know, there has been kind of business grants and things available. Obviously, the furlough systems hopefully helped a lot of people as well. So I'd like to think that the majority of them will be okay, to be fair. I wouldn't say I was overly worried. I'm not, and to be fair, it's a tough question because I don't really know the right answer, because it would be guessing. And the thing is, like, there's a lot of these venues that I kind of know the guys that own them and run them as well. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to say, oh no, I don't think that one will last, you know, because it's you don't really know the individual circumstance, you know. But I just, you know, some of the venues, for example, they're not. There's a wee split in Glasgow where you've got venues that are maybe pubs, stroke restaurants with a music side to it as well. So they would have been finding it up and down, because all of a sudden they were shut, and then they could do takeaway pints, and all of a sudden they were back open again, and now they're back shut again. You know, what do you do with the staff? It must be a nightmare. Then you've got specific venues that are basically the doors open if there's a gig on.
Yeah,
their doors have been permanently closed since March. So essentially, you hopefully, fingers crossed, you've got guys on the books that can take advantage of the furlough, and then you've got the grants that are available for helping out with the upkeep of the actual building itself. But I suppose the only way I can answer, you know, with any kind of story is to say I would relate it to what I said earlier on. I genuinely think that the things will be back to some sort of normality in the summer, which means the venues will be back. So yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but yeah, I should have just said what I meant to say was, so we're back, obviously they're back.
Yeah. No, that's it. And your answer was pretty good, because I know it puts you in a difficult position, especially if you've got close personal relationships with people and understand you don't want to say, this place is going to shut down. It was just for a wee kind of oversight to see if we are kind of at risk of losing any of these venues, because like one of the venues, but something that I can think of that's just purely for music is like the likes of the Barrowlands. Like that's not been in there since March, and that's nice venue in itself. And you just kind of you worry a wee bit like with all the overheads that they must be paying in there, the amount of staff that they have, the kind of upkeep of the building. Like you worry that because it might essentially be a year that there's well over a year they're shut for with no revenue, and it just makes it does.
I mean, the guys from the garage and the cat house 2 or 3 weeks ago, they managed to get a fairly decent. I don't know what the vehicle was, but they got a decent grant, or I don't know if it was a grant or a loan, but they got some money anyway a few weeks ago that would have helped them out substantially, you know. So so I think everything's going to be all right, you know. And to be fair, if you came back to me in 6 months' time and you said, Bobby, you're on a load of shit, then I'll just put my hands up, you know. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of, and it's nobody's fault, but I think there's a human nature, especially in times like this, where there's a pessimism that comes in with a lot of people, and you get this snowball effect where, and I'm not aiming this at you because you've just asked me the question, but I see it quite a lot on social media and stuff, and it's like, oh, you know, I don't know if this venue is going to survive this, and you're like, okay, no, I get your concern, and it's actually quite nice, but what's your reason? And 9 times out of 10, it's just I've just got this feeling. You're like, right, okay. Well, don't worry about feelings. You know what I mean? Just plan on the fact that it's going to come back, and if it doesn't come back in that time scale, it's the same as what the Scottish Government do. You're going into Tier 4 lockdown, and they're saying it's 3 weeks. They don't know. They don't know if everything's going to be okay in 3 weeks' time. But you've kind of got to plan. You've got to say, right, we'll do it for 3 weeks, and then we'll reassess it after that. You know, the English, they're coming out their lockdown in the 2nd of December. It's not going to be all right all of a sudden in the 2nd of December. They're going to have to, you know, go into a tier system the same as us, you know, regionally. So I think it's you basically have to plan and think, right, okay, let's say June, July, gigs will be back, and these venues will, you know, need to open up. I mean, to be fair to the venues, they've been brilliant. The bookers and the promoters, and you know, they've still been you know, we've got tours booked, and we've had to shift them a couple of times, but the guys have still been actively taking bookings. So it's been a really good attitude behind the scenes. Like, you know, it's like, right, let's organize as if it's going to happen. And if we get to a point where we're a month away from it and it's not happening, then we'll have a discussion, bump it up a couple of months. But yeah, no, the guys in the venues and the, you know, the bookers and that, they've been brilliant, because they've had a really good attitude. They've just been saying, right, no, we'll just keep taking the bookings.
I think that's the right attitude to take, because you don't want to get essentially caught in the hop where things start to open up and then there's kind of like panicking, manically looking for bands. So it puts a bit of light at the end of the tunnel as well, and amplifies a bit of hope into people. A lot of big artists, they started releasing tickets like a month or two ago. I think Riverside Festival as well. They started selling tickets for next year, and although it might not happen, it gives you that wee bit of hope that things Well,
You're still you're still going ahead with it. Aye, definitely, definitely.
Normalities. A kind of view of Normalities just round the corner.
I've got to say, like, so there's a place in Edinburgh, Bannerman's. They've been superb. They've been taking bands in there for the last few months, and getting them, doing live sets and getting them recorded. So they've been getting like filmed and desk recorded as well. So bands have actually got live sets now that are properly mixed musically, and they're filmed, from different angles. And what I'm finding now is these virtual festivals that are appearing. You need to have high quality sound, high quality visual as well, to be able to submit the bands to get into these festivals, these virtual festivals. And it's interesting seeing it, because obviously you can't go to a gig. It's the only way you can kind of get yourself out there, in terms of putting on a gig. I think the social and the virtual side of this lockdown has been the biggest learning curve, because basically everybody's been on their internet, because there's nothing else to do. So you've kind of had to think outside the box so much. Like Jay was brilliant at the start of the lockdown with we did a lot of Q&As with all the bands on the roster. We did like Instagram live, so we're doing an hour with all the bands, and it was brilliant. It was really good. It was really cool just to get the guys out there, and just to give them a little bit of exposure. But yeah, we've tried loads of different things, to be fair, and it's good because it makes you think, and it makes you a bit more creative about it. Normally it would just be a case of right, what gigs are we organising? It was quite like, it was, I wouldn't say easy, it was not easy, but it was just, that was what you did. Whereas now you're thinking of completely different things now.
It's great, and it's great to hear the kind of innovative ways people are approaching this lockdown, because like say a virtual festival, that didn't even come into my mind, but now you've mentioned it, that's actually an amazing idea, because they did a degree at the start of lockdown when they were it was on like BBC, and they were like filming all the kind of like Elton John and all that, but they were playing at their back door. So they kind of done it in that degree, and it's that way. It provides a wee bit of music to people, and if like something like a virtual festival, you're able to do it, I think that's an amazing idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It seems a much better idea than what they were looking to do down in England, when they were essentially putting people in cages.
Yeah. I've seen that. I thought that'd be my worst nightmare, because it's just like, especially in the type of music that we play and I listen to, you couldn't get trapped in a cage, you know what I mean? I'd just be jumping over the cage and trying to rattle somebody else's,
That's what I was thinking. I was like, how are you able to mosh pit in a cage?
I know, it'd be a bit difficult, wouldn't it? Because it's not exactly, you can't just stand there with a glass of white wine, and say, oh, this is nice, isn't it?
I know, and I think that's the kind of the clientele they're looking to get, those that want to just sit at a kind of like stand at a festival and just kind of sip wine gently, and it's that's not really a music festival, is it?
It's funny because I'm total, I'm a Metallica boy, like through and through, and even I wouldn't even care what music it was. See, if there was somebody said to me, right, there's a dry day tomorrow and there's a festival on at some park, at Glasgow Green, say, I'd go and watch it. I wouldn't care who it was, because it would just be like, it's just like putting fuel in your car. You'd just be taking it all in. You'd be like, oh, so nice to hear the speakers and the the live music, and it'd be brilliant. Everybody's, especially myself and the guys in the band and the guys in the roster, but I think everybody's just itching to see a bit of music now. Definitely.
That's it.
One thing I would say though is I think we took it for granted, and I hope it doesn't go back to the way it was, because it was always quite a funny thing on Facebook. You would see it where you would see these kind of memes and things where it was like, yeah, we've got a gig this weekend, are you coming? And they're like, yeah. And then day before the gig, oh, sorry, I can't make it, you know? And then you'd end up with like 20 folk at your gig. I don't see it going back to that, to be fair, because it's kind of opened everybody's eyes now. It's like, well, do you remember what it was like with no gigs? Do you know what I mean? Well, you'll make the effort and spend a fiver, you know, it's not big money, is it? You know, and go and see your pals.
It's funny you say that, because that seems to be the attitude everyone's taking now, especially as a football fan, because you're seeing more people going, like, what I wouldn't give for Hamilton at home at like 7:45 in a winter's night now. Like, see the kind of the things that people did take for granted, and maybe just went, oh, I'll just miss this game because there'll be an air one at the weekend that's too cold. I don't. And then now everyone's kind of itching for the wee things, and I think that's that. I think sometimes you need to take that step back and appreciate how good, essentially how good we had it.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Especially if you're that desperate to go and see Hamilton. It must be missing it bad.
It's just that form of normality I think people are missing now, like able to go to the football with their pals, able to meet other people at gigs, because some of the people you meet at gigs, you go on to be friends with them, like someone that's
absolutely. I was out of bands for years and years. It was 2017 that I joined up Nocturnewulf, and I didn't know anybody at all in the whole scene. And as you can tell, I'm quite chatty, you know, and it's like, so I was going round right from the first gig, just shaking hands with everybody and saying, all right, how you doing? I'm Bob, you know. And then before you know it, you've got another couple of gigs lined up, you know, as support. And then you play like the Metal to the Masses competition. Before you know it, you're in the final of that. So you've played every month right up to May. Once you get to the final of that, then you start getting weekend gigs quite regular after that, because people know that you're a decent band. And then you start, you know, you join up with management rosters, you bring out albums, you go on tours. It's just, everything just snowballs, you know.
Yeah.
You meet so many people. I've met so many really, really nice people that I'll, you know, I can class as friends, and I can pick up the phone or send them a message, and vice versa, they can do the same with me, you know. Yeah, it's been amazing. I think, you know, our kind of wee John, you know, our kind of community, the metal community, it's not perfect, but the majority of it is really good, and people, there's a tightness between the bands, because I think we all realise that we're all doing the same thing, and we all kind of support each other. You know, I've seen, like, especially in our band, you know, like Jamie, the guitarist, if you'll see a young lad, you know, in another band, and he's maybe not got a certain piece of equipment, he'll say, right, just use mine, don't worry about it, you know, and he looks after them, you know. And I love that, you know. It's just because we all want each other. Basically, it takes a lot of balls to go up and stand on a stage, and music,
I can imagine.
Doesn't matter what type of music it is, it takes balls to go up and do it in front of people. So we're all doing the same thing. So you want them to do, you know, to do well. So yeah, but you're absolutely right. You meet so many nice people, and I definitely have.
Because that's really reassuring to hear, and especially in the metal industry, because as an outsider looking in, it seems to me as if it can be a bit cliquey, because you get people, because metal, it's one of those weird ones. It's classed as a genre, but there's about 40 different genres of metal all combined.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't sure if it was like quite, oh, you're not as metal as us, so maybe you're below us sort of idea. So it's really, because it's really,
honestly, there might be that going on. I don't know, because I don't pay attention to it, like, because I'm kind of too old. I don't really give a shit if you're playing deathcore metal and I'm playing classic metal, or there's a thrash band over there, but then there's a doom band over there, but there's a death metal, or there's an industrial one, and you're like, I don't really give a fuck. Do you know what I mean?
aye.
If you're going to go up there and play a half-hour set at Ivory Blacks, fair play to you, and I'll stand there and watch them. and most of the bands will stand and watch everybody else as well, you know, and it's good etiquette. And it doesn't matter if it's not your specific type. That doesn't bother me, to be fair. Maybe I'm different, but there probably is a little bit of competition between different genres and stuff, but maybe for the younger ones, but it doesn't really bother me, to be fair.
So to end the show on a bit of a lighter note, what's your best band story?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, to be fair. There's quite a few good ones, to be fair, but I suppose the most PG and light-hearted one, I suppose, would be we went to so we had an album. Our first album came out last year, and we were going on a tour on the back of it, and so it was in the summer. So the first gig was in Manchester. So we drove down, but we drove down the day before, and with good reason, because Metallica were playing at the Manchester City Stadium.
Oh, right, yeah.
So obviously I just eat, live, breathe, sleep Metallica. So but I knew I was going on tour, and I was like to the guitarist Jamie, I was like, right, I'm going to behave myself, because I know I'm singing the next day. But would you kind of just help me and remind me, because as soon as Metallica come on, I'm going to start singing, and I'll be singing for fucking 2.5 hours, and then I've got to sing the next night for 5 days after that as well. So I was like, going to just, and he was like, yeah. So we I drove all the way down to Manchester on purpose, so I couldn't have a drink or anything like that. And I was like, yeah, that's great. Got to our digs in Manchester, and then the reality just kicked in. I says, oh, we're going to see Metallica. So then I don't know why, but I had a bottle of wine, and then we got to the gig, and I always remember there was these guys walking around with these rucksacks, and they were full of Heineken bottles, plastic bottles. And the boys are saying that all they remember is me walking up towards them, and I was carrying about 8 bottles. So I had like 2 in my mouth and the rest are in my hands. And just pure curiosity, coincidence, we met a band that were from Glasgow, metal band, just bumped into them. So we're all drinking away. Half an hour later, fucking shirts are off. I'm roaring like a bastard. I'm on the floor more times than and then I'm standing up because it was raining. So we've all got shirts off. It's raining. I'm down on the deck the whole time, pissed at my head. I actually did jump forward a wee bit. I kind of woke up in the morning and my elbow was like a balloon. So I must have chipped something in there. So this is before we've even started the tour. So it's so you wake up in the morning and you go like, oh fuck, and so we got eventually we managed. I wasn't too bad. I was kind of adrenaline was going, because I knew we were going to be doing a gig in Manchester, and because we were on tour, it was just like, oh, this is amazing. So we got to we did Manchester, then we went down to Bristol, came up to Leeds. England was great. Then the next night was Glasgow, and I always remember it was starting to go really bad, and I got to Glasgow, and I remember saying to the boys, "This is bad news, by the way." So we got halfway through the set, and I was singing a song. I always remember, and I was like, "I'm actually going to collapse here. I'm ghost." So I saw the guy that took over for me just recently in the band, David Yates. He was in the crowd. And I knew he knew the words to the songs. So I ran out in the crowd and I said to him, I whispered in his ear, I says, could you come up and sing the next one with me? Because I think I'm going to collapse here. So he's like, aye. So he comes up. So he actually duetted with me. And then I got my breath back and I was like, oh, cheers, mate. So finished the gig off. We did Edinburgh on the Sunday. Couldn't speak the whole day because my voice wasn't working. Couldn't even talk. Got to Edinburgh. Tried to do a sound check. It sounded like a goose farting, and I was like, "Oh my god!" So literally 1 minute before we went on stage, I had a whiskey with some honey, and I gargled it, went up, luckily started singing, and the note came out properly. That managed to do the half-hour set, and got through the end of the gig. But yeah, that was like, it was like 6 days of just physical abuse, and all self-inflicted, to be fair. But it was one of the best moments of my life, because it was just, we met some great guys. We toured with a couple, one of the bands from the roster, Salt River Shakedown, played with a band, Iron Volt from Bristol, so they came round with us as well. But it was just a brilliant time. Glasgow was the best, because we managed to get the boys moshing in the Classic Grand, so they were all going mental, which was good. So they were all beating each other up. But that kind of sums up me personally, and that kind of sums up the band. It's like, we went down there with the best intentions, and then you know what, we're a fucking heavy metal band. Let's just do it properly.
That's it. If it was good enough for Ozzy Osbourne and that back in the day, then
yeah, well, we didn't. Yeah, it's funny because we didn't go as mental as the real guys, to be fair. But we certainly, when you're not used to going playing every night for a week, then it's, you just want to sleep for a week after that, to be fair.
Because you mentioned there that you've really toured quite a bit in the UK. So what's the best venue you've ever played in?
For me personally, to be fair, I think I really enjoy. See, the English ones for me were a bit quiet, but I like the Ivory Blacks. I like King Tut's. I've played in Ivory Blacks when it's full, because it was a Metal to the Masses, and we headlined King Tut's, and it was fairly full, to be fair. And the Classic Grand it's kind of Glasgow dominated, but those 3 gigs were my favourites, to be fair, because they were full and there was a good energy about it, you know. But the guys, when I wasn't in the band, to be fair, the guys, Nocturnewulf and A Ritual Spirit, actually did a wee tour in March, and it was literally the week when they finished, we went into lockdown basically the next day.
All right.
So they managed to play in Newcastle at Trillions.
Okay, yeah.
Told me that is the best. That is the best one by far. They said that it's fucking tremendous. There's no tickets. You know, you don't need to buy a ticket because it's a rock bar. So the place was jumping. They loved that. Absolutely loved it. Yeah. So fingers crossed. I'm looking forward to getting, you know, playing a gig in there, definitely.
Cause if that's all right, we can wrap it up there. Do you have any social media that you want to promote, just for anyone listening at home that's maybe not heard you, and to give you a follow?
No worries. Well, obviously, it's Reaction Management. So if you check out Reaction Management, they've got all the bands and artists are on their website, and they've each got their own bios and EPKs. Reaction, I've got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and obviously, just as a wee plug for myself, I've got Ritual Spirit from Edinburgh and Divinators from Glasgow. They're my other 2 bands, and obviously Nocturnewulf, and we're on all the socials as well, to be fair. So, yeah.
Thanks very much for giving us your time on a Friday night, Bobby. And we'll
no worries at all.
It's been great talking to you, and it's been great
nice to talk to you too, actually.
Like a professional's kind of outlook on the music industry, because leading up to this interview, I was slightly pessimistic, because I just go with a lot of the stuff that I see on Twitter, and I was kind of, but talking to you, it's been very reassuring, and I'm sure for the viewers listening at home, it will put, especially the young musicians, hopefully this interview will put a wee bit of fire in their belly and show that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if they think I'm talking pish, at least it'll fire them up a wee bit anyway, so that's good.
Thanks much for listening, guys. See you later.